It was one of those summer nights where the air is so thick with heat and desire that it feels like you're swimming through it. I remember my brother's best friend, Alex, had come over to our house for the first time since the summer before. He was different this time, older somehow. His muscles had filled out, his voice had deepened, and there was a dark gleam in his eye that I had never seen before. I could feel my heart racing just from being near him. As we all hung out by the pool, drinking beer and laughing, I couldn't help but notice how he kept finding excuses to brush up against me or catch my eye when he thought I wasn't looking. It was intoxicating, this newfound attention from him. I'd never felt this way about anyone before. Not even my crushes. There was something about Alex that made me feel alive, like every nerve ending in my body was tingling with anticipation. Late into the night, after everyone else had gone to bed, Alex led me to the darkened living room. The only light came from the flickering glow of the fireplace. He closed the blinds, and we were left in total darkness. I could feel his breath on my neck as he slowly circled his fingers around my wrist, drawing me closer to him. "Do you want to know what I've been dreaming about for months?" he whispered in my ear. His words sent a shiver down my spine, and I could feel my heart racing with anticipation. What I managed to croak, my voice barely above a whisper. He chuckled darkly, and the sound sent a thrill through me. "I've been dreaming about kissing you," he said, his voice low and husky. "I've imagined what it would feel like to have my lips against yours, to feel your soft skin under my fingers." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My heart raced and I felt a heat spread through my entire body. I wanted him to kiss me so badly, but I was also terrified. This was my brother's best friend, after all. It felt wrong, but at the same time, so right. Alex stepped closer, his body pressing against mine, and I could feel the hard length of him through his jeans. His hands found their way up my sides, cupping my breasts over my shirt. His thumbs brushed against my nipples, and I gasped. "You want this, don't you?" he whispered, his lips so close to mine that I could feel the warmth of his breath on my lips. I nodded, unable to find my voice. I wanted this more than anything. I wanted him to kiss me, to take me. His hand slid lower, and he pushed my shorts down over my hips, bearing me to him. "You're so beautiful," he murmured, tracing his fingers over my exposed skin. "I've dreamed of touching you here." His fingers dipped in between my legs, and I moaned. It felt so good, so right. He teased me for a moment. I arched into his touch, wanting more. He leaned in closer, his lips just inches from mine. "Do you want me to make you feel good?" he whispered, his breath hot against my lips. I nodded, unable to form the words. He smiled against my skin, and then slid his fingers inside me, slowly thrusting them in and out. It felt incredible, and I couldn't help but writhe against him, needing more. His other hand gripped my hip, holding me in place as he continued to pleasure me. "You're so ready for me," he groaned, his voice thick with desire. As he pleasured me, his lips found their way to my neck, sucking and nipping at my skin. It sent a shiver through my entire body, and I arched my back, pressing myself harder against his hand. He moaned into my skin, his touch growing rougher and more urgent. His fingers thrust deeper inside me, and I felt the familiar tightness beginning to build. He groaned, his fingers moving faster, his lips finding my ear. "That's it, baby. Come for me." I could feel the wetness of his breath against my skin as he continued to pleasure me, his fingers working in tandem with his tongue. He knew exactly how to make me lose control, and I was powerless against him. As my breathing began to steady, he pulled his fingers out of me and lifted my chin to look into my eyes. They were glassy with desire, and he smiled. "You're incredible," he whispered before leaning down to press his lips against mine. His kiss was gentle at first, just a brush of his lips against mine, but it quickly deepened, and I could feel the hunger behind it. He groaned into the kiss, his tongue sliding against mine, and I opened my mouth, welcoming him in. His hand found its way up my body, cupping my breast over my shirt. and I arched into the touch, wanting more. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his eyes dark with desire. "I want you so bad," he whispered, running his fingers through my hair. "I've wanted this for so long." His lips found my neck again, sucking and nipping at my skin. I moaned, my head falling back against his shoulder. "I want to make love to you," he said, his voice thick with need. "I want to feel you wrapped around me." He helped me to my feet, his hands never leaving my body. He kissed me again, deeper this time, his tongue dancing with mine. I felt my body respond to his touch, my desire growing with each passing moment. He walked us backward until we reached the bed, then lowered me down onto the soft mattress. His hands moved over my body, unbuttoning my shirt, slipping it off my shoulders. His fingers found my bra, unhooked it, and slid it down my arms. He leaned in to kiss my bare breasts, sucking and nipping at my nipples, sending shivers through me. "You're so beautiful," he murmured, his voice rough with emotion. His hand slid down between my legs, touching me gently. I arched into his touch, wanting more. He smiled, his eyes meeting mine, and then lowered his head, taking my breast into his mouth. He moved his fingers inside me, thrusting deeper, faster. The pleasure built inside me, tightening my stomach, making my breath come in ragged gasps. "Oh God, I can't wait any longer," he groaned, his voice strained. He pushed his body between my legs, and I felt the hardness of him against my entrance. He looked down at me, his eyes dark and intense, and then with a gentle thrust he was inside. I gasped, arching into his touch. He moved slowly at first, filling me, giving me time to adjust to the feel of him inside me. His hands found my hips, holding me still as he began to thrust deeper. His thrusts became rougher, deeper, and I could feel the familiar tightness begin to build inside me. He groaned, his eyes closed tightly, and then with a sharp cry he came, his body tensing as he emptied himself inside me. I felt the hot wetness of his release, and my body convulsed around him, my own orgasm washing over me in a wave of pleasure. He collapsed onto me, his weight pressing me into the mattress, his breath hot against my skin. After a moment he rolled off me, and I felt the cool air against my heated skin. He reached out, tracing a finger along my jawline, his touch gentle and tender. "You are everything I've ever wanted," he whispered, and then kissed me, his lips soft and sweet against mine. I wrapped my arms around him, feeling the warmth of his skin against mine, and the steady rhythm of his heart beneath my fingers. We lay together in silence for a while, catching our breath and basking in the afterglow of our passion. His hand found its way back to my breast, cupping and caressing it, and I arched into his touch, wanting more. "Thank you," he murmured against my neck, his fingers toying with my nipple. "For trusting me, for letting me in." He pulled back to look at me, his eyes searching mine for some answer, some reassurance. I smiled, knowing that I'd never find the right words to express how I felt. But he seemed to understand, because he leaned in and kissed me again, soft and sweet, before rolling onto his side to spoon me. As we lay there, I felt the weight of his arm across my waist, his chest pressed against my back, and the warmth of his body surrounding me. It was a comfortable, familiar sensation that made me feel safe and loved, and for the first time in a long time, I knew that I was home. The sun began to rise, casting a warm golden light through the window, and I could feel the energy of the day stirring within me. I turned in his embrace, pressing my body against his, and he smiled down at me. "What are your plans for today?" he asked, running his fingers through my hair. I thought for a moment, savoring the feel of his skin against mine. "I don't know," I replied with a sigh. "I'm just glad to have this day with you," he smiled, leaning in to kiss me softly. "Well, I think we should make the most of it. How does a walk in the park sound?" I smiled back up at him, feeling a flutter of excitement in my stomach. "That sounds perfect." He helped me out of bed, his hands lingering on my skin as he dressed me in a soft, comfortable dress. As he buttoned it up, he leaned in to kiss my collarbone, his lips warm against my skin. "I'm glad you're here," he murmured. "I don't know what I'd do without you," I smiled, wrapping my arms around his waist and resting my head on his chest. "I'm not going anywhere," I assured him. "I'm staying right here." And as we stepped out into the world together, hand in hand, I knew that with him by my side, I could face anything.